Oh, wait. I forgot that the thing was up, and I'm like, where are we? Hi, I'm Manning.
And I'm Matt. Hello.
And of course, chaos has already begun as we review the 5th James Bond that we know of now. There's going to be 7, and there's going to be as many as Barbara Broccoli, as many as they want. But right now, we're looking at number 6 in our James Bond retrospective. Matt, who is that?
That would be the one, the only Pierce Brosnan. I can't do an
It is, in
impression
fact,
of him, so
yes, it is. Well, he's Scottish, right? Or is
he's
he Irish?
Irish. You
He's Irish. Ooh, ooh.
My people are hurt by that comment there.
Sorry. I realized I'm like, oh, after I said that, I'm like, oh, that's wrong.
Yes,
That's
he's
wrong,
one
and I
of the
cannot take it back.
non-Brits to portray a British spy.
One of the two, right?
Yeah, because Connery's more.
Oh no,
Because
3.
Connery's Scottish. Lazenby, I think, is Australian.
He's Australian.
So I think Moore and Craig and Dalton are the only actual Brits.
3 out of 3. Okay. Well,
Hello, Scuba
didn't
Pete.
expect that. Oh wait, we have
Yeah.
comments over there. Hello, Scuba Pete.
Yeah.
Scuba, I like it. So we're talking about Brosnan today, and obviously, he is your favorite Bond. We'll go right out the gate and say that.
Yeah.
Why do you have such an emotional connection to him? And obviously, we'll get more into the details, but I just want to know your opinion.
So part of it is, of course, I think James Bond is a lot like superheroes, to where like the one you're introduced to, you tend to sort of have like that in a way sort of becomes your definitive one. So like the first James Bond movie I ever saw was The World Is Not Enough. So like, and I grew up, that had to have been a little bit after Die Another Day comes out. So 2003-4 is when I see World Is Not Enough. So Craig, I don't even think was cast yet. Or maybe he had, I think he was announced in like 05. I don't think, I could be wrong. Or maybe it was right around the time. Maybe that's why Sci-Fi Channel was showing a bunch of Bond movies. But like Daniel Craig wasn't like, it wasn't like, oh, this new Bond is coming, at least to me. Like I was unaware. So I really grew up in like Brosnan's movies were the most recent ones. Those are the ones that were on TV a lot.
Right.
But growing up, watching the movies as I did, I got into the books when I was in high school. Going back to his performance, we'll get into it. I think, and again, I said it in our last episode, I think Dalton is the best. I think he's the best actor, but there are so many reasons for me of why I like what Pierce Brosnan brought to this role and why I think he's better than the next guy who took it on from him. But we'll get into that when we get to that.
Hold off on that and your hot takes. For me, as Brosnan, Pierce Brosnan, obviously, I didn't come to the Bond franchise until later. Craig was actually Connery was my first because I've seen like clips, as you know, but the first one I watched all the way through was Craig. Brosnan, I actually watched all the way through, like, I think last year. I saw GoldenEye all the way up to, what's the last one? I get them all mixed up. Thank you, Die Another Day. There, see those. We'll get into that in a bit, but those last two really blur together. Wow.
I disagree with that, but we'll get into that.
Okay.
I already know our rankings will be different, I think, from just that statement.
I think I would hope our number one would be the same, but we'll find out later. I would be shocked if it's not what I think it is. Anyway, so Brosnan, I really enjoy him as Bond. In fact, I will go as much as to say as I think that GoldenEye might be one of the best Bond films that we have had, bar none. Personally, I believe that. It's where his other movies, to me, start to really fall off a cliff into the absurdity, to the point where there's so many eye rollings that are almost very. It's very of the 90s. It's very 90s, is what I'll say, in early 2000s. It's very of that time. Much as well, I think you will argue that Casino Royale is of its time, post Batman Begins.
And we've talked about this, I think, throughout the entire series. Every Bond movie is of its time. And I mean, we went back to that, I think, going back to Roger Moore, how like Roger Moore, a lot of his stuff was very silly and fun and everything, but that's because the 70s, it was a little bit more pulpy and that's what people wanted. Like it. And again, I'll restate it again. I've been saying a lot throughout this. That's the reason why James Bond has endured for over 60 years, or 60 years now, is because he has changed. He hasn't remained stagnant. Um, but yeah, I do want to say before we do this, I think we'd be remiss to not mention the passing of Queen Elizabeth because look, she has had such an effect on the James Bond series. Her reign was so long that the next Bond will be the first James Bond actor to ever not be operating under Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Huh. Really?
Yeah, she was there
Oh,
before Connery. There has
you're
never
right.
been one that has not been in the service of Queen Elizabeth. And obviously,
Wow.
with these movies, I think we also have to mention the passing of Robbie Coltrane,
Yes.
who is in two of these. He's I know he's in Goldeneye. I don't think he pops up in Tomorrow Never Dies, but he's in The World's Not Enough. So we lost two people very connected to
Yeah.
this series. I just figured we get that out of the way before we get into our first film. Which Manning, do you want to pull up the poster and see if we move out of the way correctly?
Oh, we will. Watch this. Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, my favorite in this entire franchise. Oops, almost put up the wrong one. I can't see. They're so small. There
Hey,
we go. Golden Eye. Golden Eye, after I believe, wow, correct me if I'm wrong, was it 4 or 5 years from the last, was
License
it
was
six?
89. This was 95.
6 years after the premiere of Dalton's last film, View to a Kill. Um, what was that?
License to Kill. View to Kill
License to
was
Kill.
Roger Moore's last
You're
outing.
right. See, there are so many names at this point where it's like, oh wow, that's just a lot. Um, but 6 years later, we have this, and apparently, not only did GoldenEye have some fantastic reviews, it made bank in comparison to
Oh,
its
it did
predecessor, at
very
least.
well.
So I want to. That's just fascinating to me. How that there was such a wait. I think people were just excited to the point to where it's like, oh, we haven't seen him in 6 years. We're ready for a Bond, and it was almost like a reset in a
And
way.
I think
Mhm.
what you see in that and well, fun thing is one of the reasons why the 6 years is because as with any long running franchise that isn't Star Wars and owned by one singular dude, there was rights issues about who owned James Bond. And that's what really delayed it. And fun
Right.
story is GoldenEye was supposed to be Dalton's next outing. He had signed a
Yep.
free picture deal. And so they wrote GoldenEye for him. By the time it came to do it, he was no longer interested. And so they said, oh, we need a new Bond. And so they go after the guy who they wanted after Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan. They wanted Pierce Brosnan after Roger Moore. The problem was in the 80s, Pierce Brosnan was doing a show called Remington Steele. And unless your name is Michael J. Fox and you were willing to do Family Ties and Back to the Future at the same time, if you were in an 80s TV show, you were really not in movies.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and it's just funny how those things work that, they still got to get him eventually. But yeah, I think one of the reasons why I think this movie was so successful is because, as we talked about last episode, the Dalton movies went very dark. They took the series in a very different direction. To was this, it brought it back to Connery's, and I think you'll see that comparison a lot to where I feel like Pierce's was sort of like an update of Connery's films. Like a lot of these movies and plots, you could see Sean Connery in them, which I think is great. And yeah, GoldenEye. Look, we'll mention it now. I didn't grow up with the N64, so I have no nostalgia towards the video game. I had one.
Really?
I look. I'm born in '97. By the time I'm grown up, PS2 and GameCube are the systems. I had one friend who had an N64. We kind of played GoldenEye, but we never knew how to do it. Like we tried to play multiplayer, but we kind of sucked at it, so we would just play Shadows of the Empire instead. So I have no nostalgia. If you want to talk about the game, because I know if we don't mention the game, look, I know it's getting like
No.
re-released on the Switch. Just before we get into the movie, if you want to make any mention of the game, go right ahead. I have no
No.
nostalgia things.
No. Before we get into the film, I will say this: GoldenEye was actually I played the game before I watched the movie, so I kind of knew what was going to happen, even
Yeah,
it's in its glorious 64 Nintendo 64 graphics. So That's all I'll really say about it. I love the game. It's great. First introduction to Brosnan's world of GoldenEye. So anyway, GoldenEye, Martin Campbell's first directorial effort in James Bond franchise, which is ironic. He kind of brought two different James Bonds into the fold.
Yeah, I wonder if they're gonna go to him for the next one too. His career is just gonna be rebooting James Bond.
Yeah, is he? How old is he? Oh, is he still doing movies? He's not dead, is he?
I'm not dead. Oh, yeah.
I'm not dead yet.
I feel like I would know if he passed away.
No, you're right. We feel like we would. We would hear something.
Oh,
Martin Campbell is very much alive. He's 78. Good on him. I don't know if he's still doing movies.
He'll do it. Maybe.
So, but anyway, Martin Campbell directs this film that honestly is not. There are little bits of Dalton's world copy and pasted over here in my mind. Some of the darkness.
That's the thing.
Pardon?
It was written. That's
exactly
why I think I like this movie so much, because of that. Because it feels like this movie almost feels like they were like, okay, we might have gone too dark with the last two entries. Let's try and lighten it up, but still keep that seriousness of Dalton's portrayal. And I think that's what sort of worked about this. And yeah, so let's get into the movie. Obviously, talk about Dalton. The beginning of this movie starts 1 year before the events of Living Daylights. It starts in 1986, which again, I think that's stuff like that is because this was supposed to be, even though I'm in the camp that they're from Connery to Brosnan are the same character.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I feel like that's, and so we start the movie off with a very quiet running sequence that leads into a bungee jump sequence out of freaking nowhere. James Bond just bungee jumped down, and then we finally get the true introduction of Pierce Brosnan, one of my favorite Bond moments. Sorry, forgot to knock. Just the smile, I love it. I love that intro.
Can I also just say, we also get the intro, but there is some other person who I think might be the best, well, spoiler alert, villain in the James Bond franchise.
Yeah.
Alec Trevelyan, played by none other than Boromir himself.
Sean
Bean.
He's for England, James. Yeah, Sean Bean is so good in this movie. He's my favorite Bond villain of all time. I
totally get it.
I think, and he's so good because one, him and Pierce play off each other really well.
Yes.
He's kind of smarmy when he becomes a villain. And there's also just that thing of like, you get the sense that like they came up together. They were in the Navy together. They became double O's at the same time. And so for James, there is that thing of like, can I beat this guy? Or, you know, like it's going to be hard to beat this man. So we get into the intro where essentially they're in this Russian, like nuclear I don't know, something Russian, because this is 1995 and Arabs aren't the villains yet. We still have
about to say, yeah.
Even though this is like well after the Cold War is done.
Yeah.
So we don't really have we haven't. I feel so bad when I say it, but it is true. Hollywood hadn't Arabs to be the villains yet, so they're like, we still have Russians to be the villains in our movies. Now, my question is this. So obviously, Alec and James are all in lockstep until, oh no, Alec Trevelyan gets caught by the evil Russian general, and he gets shot in the head. My question is that a real gun? Because not too long after that, James goes and he switches the timer from 6 minutes to 3 minutes. And then when he's moving with the containers, a guy shoots and the general shoots him. And I go, is that real? Like, did Alec actually get shot, or is that Russian soldier just playing along really well? Because the whole plot here is Alec's going to pretend like he dies, and then we're going to kill James Bond and turn off the bomb, so I'm going to play dead. But I'm just like, watching this time, I'm like, what's that?
Well, obviously, well, that's a good question, actually. But I always thought of him as playing dead in a way, because
well, he is. he's faking his death.
Well, I mean, like, shot by a real gun is what you're saying. Like, yeah, it's not like I don't think what you're asking is like,
Was
did
he
they
like
like
wounded in the shoulder maybe, and it's just from the angle it looks like it gets shot in the head?
probably
It's the Russian soldier getting shot. That I'm just like the general's holding a fake gun. Like it's
no,
again,
no,
it's something you're not supposed to think about, but I'm
don't
being
think about that.
very analytical.
Do not.
So then we move into a great sequence of James running after an airplane. The plane goes over, James goes over on a motorcycle, and they're like, well, clearly he's dead because we've never seen a James Bond movie before. But of course, now again, the laws of physics, I don't even know if it's possible to that you can somehow fall and I don't know. Again, I was horrible in science in school, so I don't know. But of course, because it's James Bond, he gets in the plane and he escapes. And then we get Tina Turner's wonderful Bond song, Goldeneye.
Yes.
One of the best, I think. One of the best
Um.
songs, themes.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. I still think it's
I mean,
one of
it's
the
not my
best.
favorite, but like,
Now,
we listed some duds in
yes.
past episodes.
Yes.
So
Now, what I will say is, in reference to this entire opening section, this is probably one of the strongest, if
yes,
in the entire, not just actually, this is the best in the Brosnan. Obviously, it's
yeah,
best film in my opinion, but the best opening as well too,
yeah.
and it is probably one of the best ones out of the entire series because not only is there like thematic weight to what's transpiring
It
with Alex
actually
Trevelyan,
connects to what happens. It's not just,
correct,
oh, here's James Bond being cool. Like it actually has something to do with the plot, which is
right?
nice. And I agree. Yeah, I think it's one of the best. Um, and so then we move on. Like I said, 6 years later, and once again, going back to I think this was them wanting to do serve a return of the Connery era. We get the return of the beautiful Aston Martin from
Ah,
Goldfinger.
loved it.
And we get a wonderful sequence of what you call playing chicken with Femke Jansen's on the top in her car. A scene that Mission
On a
Impossible
top,
2
yeah.
completely stole from this movie. If you see Mission Impossible 2, there's the Tom Cruise and Tandy Newton. Literally, they stole this scene straight from this movie. And of course, this is
Huh.
James Bond. Yeah, they freaking steal. They just have to do it more extreme.
I have not seen 2 in a while, so I can't exactly be like, "Oh, you're right. I barely remember that movie. Sorry, John Woo."
But yeah, so this whole sequence is kind of the intro of MK Jansen. But it's more so it's James Bond's evaluation, which of course James just, makes out with her because it's James Bond.
It's
Um
Bond.
and then we move on. So we then move on to the sort of casino, and this is where we get the true intro to Xenia Onatov, Femke Jansen. What do you think about this femme fatale?
Definitely a femme fatale. She does a lot of fatalities in
Ah,
this film. Get it?
yeah.
I she's fine. I'm not exactly like I think in comparison, all the villains in comparison to Trevelyan, I think are just kind of
So
they lack dimension in my
she's
mind in comparison. But
I agree.
she's good.
So this is my intro to Femke Jansen was the X-Men movies. So like
Same.
she's always been Jean Grey to me. So when I watch this, I'm like, one, you're a great actress because you pull off both of these parts extremely well. That scene with the general is fucking unsettling as shit because she is, Xenia is, and look, no kink shaming. She's into killing guys. That's like her thing because she's really into that.
We do
Um,
not condone the death of others.
No,
Let that be
we
stated.
don't.
We do
But
not.
we
We
also
do.
don't kink
Yeah.
shame here on Take Three. So, take your poison,
Yes,
I
we
guess.
do not.
Yeah, she's just a side person, and she's fine. She's not as good as like the Odd Jobs or something, but she's definitely a
The
step above
Jaws.
like
Yeah.
the blonde dude from For Your Eyes Only. Like she's memorable. The one thing you could say is Femke Jansen is memorable in this film.
Yes,
She's something
that
that,
I will completely
and
agree
some
with.
would argue she's more memorable than the Bond girl. Um, in this film.
Yeah.
Some people would argue.
Yeah.
But we'll get to her in a little bit. But so she kills a general because they're gonna steal this helicopter thing. James shows up, he gets there too late, finds the general dead, and he's not able to stop it. Even though literally freaking he's a naval commander. I feel like he could just pull out a bat, but you know what? Whatever. It's supposed to be fun, and
Don't
they
think too
need
hard.
to get the helicopter. That's part of the plot. So then we move to. I honestly forget where it is, but some like Russian outpost thing in a very cold place.
I think it's St.
Siberia,
Petersburg,
probably St.
or
Petersburg.
the no. Wait, so are you talking about when the incident happened initially, or when Bond goes to investigate with Jack?
No, I'm talking about after the whole helicopter thing when we meet Natalia.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's Siberia.
Siberia. You know what? I'm just like cold Russian place. Cold. It's Siberia. That's the only place, even though Russia itself. So we meet Natalia, who is the Bond girl. She is a. I don't think we ever find out exactly what her job at this place is, but she's a computer programmer.
Yep, that's all we know.
That's it.
And yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. She is well, the actress is. I forgot her name. Do you remember?
I don't know.
Yeah, Natalia Simonova. God bless her. Yeah, she is not the highlight of this film. Not that she has moments where
she's not bad, but she's
good.
She winds up in a weird category of Bond girls to where she is semi-useful, but also she's just kind of underwritten. She doesn't look. She ain't no Tracy. Okay, she is no Tracy Bond. But she's fine. But we also need.
It's Isabella Isabella
Scorappo.
Natalia. Natalia is the character's name. After I said that, I'm like, that's not right. So
yeah, I know that was the character's name. So we also meet Boris. Alan coming? No, I'm getting that guy confused with somebody else. Oh my god, he's flooping Spy Kids.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, Boris.
Yeah, I love that guy.
Alan Cummings. I got that right? Oh, look at me. Hey, put me in the schmo. Oh, I'm sorry, too late. Yeah, so obviously my intro to this guy was Floop from Spy Kids. So watching this, he is wonderful though, and he is having so much fun. I am invincible, which by the way, I have to say, I've had computer problems before, and a couple times when I've been able to solve them on my own, I have to myself gone, I am invincible. He's also kind of a perv.
Yeah.
He makes pictures of his friends and has, although they're definitely funny jokes, they are right in front of you and they open large doors. It's funny.
He's definitely he's a side character with a lot of
personality. He's memorable. He's a memorable. He's not even a villain so much. He's not even a villain so much. But he goes out to get a cigarette, and then the evil general shows up again with MK Jansen because they want to look at GoldenEye. Which GoldenEye is this thing that it's essentially like a targeting system that can just I don't know, kill people. It's the MacGuffin of the movie.
It's the MacGuffin. It's the title. It's what the villains need to continue their onslaught of evil.
And they get it, they test it, and then they shoot up the place. Natalia is getting coffee at the time, so she's not in sort of the bullpen with everybody. In a really smart move that I forgot she did. It's an EMP. That's right. Scuba P is right. It's an EMP. It knocks out all the electronic stuff. That's right. So she in a really smart move because she's like, oh shit, what do I do? They're coming back for me. I forgot this because at first I'm like, oh, she's gonna John McClane and go into the ceiling, but she doesn't. In a really smart move, she makes it look like she did while she's hiding in a cupboard.
Very smart.
Femke Jansen, Onatov, and the evil Russian general, they leave thinking the mission is complete. The Russians come, but they're too late. The EMP hits, the station explodes, and Natalia doesn't die. Now, around this time, this stuff is sort of intercut. James Bond comes back to MI6, and we're introduced to a new Moneypenny, who I think is great. And there's that, again, they're really going back to the Connery stuff. There's that classic flirtatiousness, like she's wearing the dress and it's like, oh, Moneypenny, you didn't have to get dressed up for me. And she's like, surprisingly, I have a social life and don't just sit around waiting to be called to bring in James Bond. But then the real person we're introduced to is Dame Judi Dench as M, who is
lover.
She's so fucking good.
Yes.
In this movie in particular, she is that scene between her and Bond where she's like, because her intro is one of the guys is kind of like shit talking to her, and then of course, in classic comedic fashion, she's right behind right behind them. But then she brings him Bond, and she just lays it out on the table. She's just like, you think I won't send a man out to die? I will. I think you are a misogynistic dinosaur, a relic of the Cold War. I love that line because we have been talking about this that is until this movie. That's who James Bond was. He was a spy during the Cold War. Like, he is kind of a relic. But what I also like is, for as much as she shuts that up and she explains what GoldenEye is, I do like the final moment where she's like, Bond, try to come back alive. Like, I like how she established, she's like, don't fuck with me, but you're a good agent and I don't want to lose you. But like, boy, like she mentions the evaluation.
Which I think is a very, it's a good way to bring Bond into the 21st century without having to be reinvent the character. It's like the characters are self-aware.
Would say her speech is hanging a lampshade to be like, oh, hey, look, we're referencing that he's misogynistic and is from the Cold War, so it's okay. But like, this is what happens when you get great actors and actresses in a lesser person's hands. That speech sucks. In her hands, you're like, nah, she's laying the cards out for the table for this 00 that, like, I don't give a fuck about you.
And that's what I
send you out to die. I don't care.
And I think through all these four, and even up until,
Skyfall.
Yeah, up until Skyfall, the three Craig films.
Yeah.
Every single one I have loved her in. She is a continual highlight, even if she's not always used the best. Every scene she's in, she is like eating into the script that she has been given. And I think this is a great introduction because unlike the other ones, no offense to the other, even the current one, Ray Fiennes, they're not the same. And by meaning that, I mean, like, she brings a certain hard ass nature to the character where she's like, listen, I'm going to tell you what is, because you know what?
So this is just me personally. And again, no offense to the other ones, but those other characters were, I'm exposition man. I'm going to tell you she is a character.
Yes.
Like even small things like the reference to the fact that she has kids. Like none of the other M's had a reference to their wives or anything. Like just subtle things like that of just like, she's a mom. She has kids. She might have a husband. We don't know. Well, in the Craig film, she certainly doesn't have a husband, but just little things like that. Judi Dench, and I think that's also because they just got an incredible actress.
Yes.
She makes Emma character for the first time in, geez, what was this? 95? How many years? Probably
so many years.
But yeah, so Bond, and now my brain is forgetting what the next sequence is.
I believe the next scene.
As Manny readjusts himself.
Sorry, there's a slight short in my mic, so every time I move a little bit, it will just disconnect from me. So no, after basically, M kind of tells him what for and what the mission is. I have trying to remember what happened. Because I have this up here because I saw this 2 weeks ago, so I'm trying to remember.
So bad. I should probably have taken notes, but this is part 5 of 6-part series, and I haven't taken notes up to this point. So.
It's okay. So he travels. He's basically going to he's going to St. Petersburg is what happens next.
Well, because they know that there's a survivor from the explosion.
Yes.
Yeah, because he goes to essentially find Natalia, even though he doesn't know he's looking for Natalia. And that's when he gets captured because there's the scene in the bat. Well, we meet Robbie Coltrane. That's
Yeah,
the next
Jack
scene.
Wade.
Is we meet
Yeah.
Robbie Coltrane. Which fun thing? Do you know the actress who is playing his mistress, the singer?
Wait,
Did you
no.
recognize that actress? Stand by your man. That is Minnie Driver. Good Will Hunting. That is Minnie Driver. Yep.
That was Minnie Drive. Wow, I
That's
completely
Minnie
missed
Driver.
that.
She was a professional singer really before she got into acting, which is why it's funny in Joel Schumacher's Phantom of the Opera. She's the only person they dubbed over. But
Interesting.
that's how you do it. But yeah, obviously Robbie Coltrane, recipes.
Yeah,
He's fucking
loved
great
him.
as this character. Like, like, do you know why I have a limp? He's like the almost shooting at Bond's dick several times. That first moment when he makes fun of Minnie Driver's horrible singing, and he's like, "That is my mistress." He's like, "Oh, she's beautiful." Like,
He is this is where I think Bond really shines, is when they have characters like Robbie Coltrane brings with Zukovsky. And he just kind of is having a blast, you can tell.
yeah.
Because I think that, while I think the M's of the world need to be kind of like that straight-laced, these supporting characters really bring a
And get to
richness
be.
out to the Bond mythos.
I should mention before Robbie Coltrane, we are introduced to Wade, our CIA contact, played by Joe Don Baker, who 2 films
Excellent.
ago was the villain of the movie.
Yeah, that's really kind of threw me for a loop when I saw that. I'm like, wait a minute, I just saw you not that long ago.
Yeah. And so the first thing I thought was watching this movie was I went, who is this? Where's Felix? But then I remembered in License to Kill, Felix is a DEA agent now. He's not with
Yep.
the CIA anymore. And I know I'm flashing forward, but fun thing is I think they do make a slight reference to that and Felix, because when James is in Florida and Wade brings the airplane, he says, a friend in the DEA got me this. I think that's a reference to Felix. I think that's a reference to Felix.
Oh, okay.
Like, they don't
Nice.
outright say it, but it's like, if you're following the track in the movies, yeah, Felix is a DEA agent. If he didn't retire after getting his foot gnawed off by a shark and his wife murdered, so, which is understandable.
Yeah, good point.
He was in good spirits by the end of that movie.
Seemed like it.
But yeah, then we get Robbie Coltrane, and then we get the bathhouse scene with Fenke Jansen trying to kill Bond. And Pierce is just he's so great in this whole sequence. No more foreplay. Like, they're both so good, but he is, yeah. And then she takes him to meet the head honcho. He has a name, but who gives a shit? We learn it's Alec Trevelyan, which James is like, what the fuck are you doing here? You're dead. You were supposed to die for me, James. And that whole conversation they have, I think, is so awesome because, like, I love the moment when Alec is like, I almost thought about bringing you on to this, but I knew James Bond's loyalty was always to the mission, never to his friend. And obviously, in classic villain fashion, Alec reveals his reasonings is because his parents were Russian, they were killed, and everything. We also learned James Bond's parents were murdered in a climbing accident. We learned that in this movie. It's a great sequence, and then, of course, before James has the chance to kill him, he got shot by a dart and is woken up to Natalia screaming her head off, and James is trapped in the helicopter. Again, even in this moment, Brosnan's so good. Where it's just like, I'm a little tied up right now.
And that's what I'll say is, like, I think they had an issue as they continued on, and especially with the last film. The quips, I think, in this one were manageable to the point where this felt like some nice levity. It was true to the character, and it brought a lot of, I think, when there were some of these moments like this where it's like, oh my God, this horrible stuff's happening. But no, it felt like there was some like natural humor. We'll get into the other ones later, but I think it really worked in GoldenEye.
So James is able to bust out. James is able to bust out of that, of course, because it's James Bond. And then, again, my mind is just fried right now. because I'm just like, what's the next sequence before the tank sequence? There's something that no, they get captured by the Russians.
I was gonna
That's
say,
what happens.
yeah.
Yeah, they get captured by the Russians and they're being interrogated. And Bond is essentially doing what Bond does, which is he's kind of playing off. He's just like, we know about GoldenEye, and he's like, you got GoldenEye because we don't have it. And then of course the evil Russian general comes in and murders a bunch of Russians because he can just blame it on James Bond,
Yep.
as you do. And that's when they're running away. Natalia gets captured, and that's when James Bond gets in a freaking tank and starts chasing after them.
And
One of the best sequences in the
yes.
movie.
Yes.
And
That
the
is
moment
so fun.
that whenever I think of why Pierce Brosnan is my favorite James Bond, so much destruction, smashes through all this stuff, gets up and just adjusts the tie and continues on. It's in our interest sequence. It's such a small moment. Finally, they get on to a train with Xenia and Alec, and he starts playing chicken with them, and they're like, he's gonna ram us. Of course, at the last moment, James jumps off, he gets on, and he has Alec in his sights. Because he didn't give a shit about her. Nope. He doesn't care. He's just like, kill her. She means nothing to me. I really now whether or not he was playing with that, we don't know. But then we move on to a really great moment where Alec and them all escape, and he says, I'm gonna give you 6 minutes, James, the same 6 minutes you gave me. And then I love immediately he's like, we have 3 minutes. Like, I just love how immediately he's like, I know what this asshole's doing. This whole the tank train sequence, I think, is really fantastic. It's great sequences. What do you think of them? I do apologize, guys. I know it seemed like we're flashing through, but we are on a time crunch this time. So I'm trying to just speed us through the movie. But I do want Mayonnaise' perspective on the tank and the train.
Listen, again, when you mentioned the tank scene, I kept thinking, when we go to the tank scene, when we gonna get to the tank scene, when we gonna get to the tank scene? Because in the video game GoldenEye, only time I'll mention it, you get to drive a tank and you get to shoot things. And I'll never forget that. And I kept wondering, is this actually in the film? And of course it actually is the film, and it's kind of fantastic when he commandeers the tank. Up until, and even this entire sequence, literally everything up until he finds out that Alec is alive, up until they have to escape the train, that entire sequence, like, that they have, I think is like, it's a couple of scenes, I know, but like, that entire section to me is like a full-on adrenaline junkies. It is probably this is why I think GoldenEye is one of the best types of Bonds, because GoldenEye is one of the best Bond films, because it'll have these moments of emotion with Trevelyan, but then it will go and it'll have those little moments about the 6 minutes you gave me.
Very good at parsing. It gives enough time for the characters while also being like, but when we get to the action's going to be freaking great. It's worth the wait. And the great thing is the dramatic stuff is good. It's really good. And of course, moving on with that, Natalia is able to pinpoint them down to being in Cuba somewhere. And so that's where he knows they're going. They're in Florida. Like I said, they meet up with Wade. And then we get the scene that is establishing the romance between Natalia and James Bond, where James sitting on the beach is sort of lamenting the fact that he's discovered his best friend that he thought was murdered and that he couldn't save is actually the villain. And Natalia I honestly think she does have a great moment where she's just like, all the heroes I know are dead, like all this stuff, all your fighting. Again, it's trying to set up a romance between them, because then of course they have sex, because it's James Bond and that's what you got to do. And it's not terrible, but it's also just like, all right. I mean, she looks great in that scene. I'm not, I'm not knocking James at all.
I will also say that I think that, again, the romance is not the highlight of this film. It's not the one where it's like, wow, this is one of the most emotionally poignant ones. No, it's good, but it's not great.
I mean, they at least try. This isn't like A View to a Kill with Roger Moore and oh god, what's her name? Tanya Roberts. Where you're just like, how the fuck did this happen? But then we move on to Cuba, which is just like, this entire last act of the movie is incredible. You start off with them, their plane getting hit by the EMP, they go down, Xenia Onatopp comes down, they had that fight to where
Woo!
James
What a
is
way to
this
go.
close to dying, and then she gets ripped back by that, which is
I
it's
I'm surprised. I mean, obviously it's PG-13, so they're not going to show her back ripped off or
yeah,
her entire
and
front
it's
torso rip off. But
oh
like with the force of that helicopter, you know that she ain't survived. Like there
yeah
is no
no
way that her body would be able to take that, or the branch or something. But it's
yeah
a car. But it's Bond. So
it's fun. But then we move on. Obviously, they get captured by Alec and everything, and we get a wonderful sequence with Boris and the pen. Which, yes, I realized we did not set up Q. It's a great sequence with Q.
yes,
It's the sandwich joke I still love. That's my lunch, Bond. But obviously, they set up the fact that James has his pen. Click it 3 times to arm it. Click it 3 times to unarm it. Boris is going through the whole time clicking, and James is just like counting to himself, like, and then of course Boris hits it 3 times, does it again. James kicks it, big explosion, everything's going crazy, and finally we get to
that's
the
right.
climactic battle between James Bond and Alec Trevelyan. Great fight. I like how it starts off kind of in that what do you call that thing? I guess sort of the like gear area. It's kind of claustrophobic,
Yeah, we'll go
and
with the
then
gear.
James falls down on the ladder, and he escapes Alec, and then he falls down, and then we get Alec versus James. Like this whole sequence, Pierce Brosnan, the dialogue is so wonderful between the two of them until we finally get to for England, James. No,
No,
for me.
me.
But one of the best Sean Bean deaths. Everyone shows it.
Yep.
What I forgot is because they show a wide shot of him falling. I forget they show the impact. They
Yep.
show him hit the satellite, and that for PG-13 is. But once again, if you don't show blood, it's okay. You can show
Weird.
Alex Trevelyan's contorted body, but it's okay. There's no blood, so it's fine.
Ryan Permission says of his 4 films, GoldenEye is the best.
Yes.
I agree, Ryan.
Ryan, we will get to our rankings at the end of this, and you'll
Yes.
see if we agree or not, even though Manning's ruined it. And if you watch the first episode of this series, I technically ruined it as well.
I mean, we kind of like it's kind of obvious at this point from just talking what our favorite one is going to be of Brosnan, more so than I think any of the other ones.
Yeah. But so what do you think of the final battle between Alex Trevelyan? And then we could just sort of what are your final thoughts on GoldenEye?
Yeah.
Because I'm just looking
I'll
at the
kind
time, but we got 3 different movies.
I know we're gonna
One of
speed
which
through these.
I have several things to say.
Yeah, so what I'll quickly say about GoldenEye, but I think we're gonna spend the most time on GoldenEye because it's both of our favorites.
Yeah,
That's
I
kind of
think
like
we'll just have base level talks about the next
of course.
three.
For this one, GoldenEye succeeds because it adds some like emotional stakes for Bond. And yes, of course, I know that Dalton's had emotional stakes with which I love Dalton's by the way. But this one has that, but it also has some fantastic action that I think is even with the Craig films, what I love, there's some great action set pieces in here that are kind of hard to top.
Yeah.
So like
and not just for Brosnan, just for in Bond in general.
Yes.
There's some like obviously the tank is fantastic. But I honestly think when it comes to Alec versus Brosnan, not even just from a choreography, which it's choreographed great, but it's like you said, that emotion to this movie, that because most James Bond villains, it's just like, here's evil man, mustache twirling guy that James is gonna fight. What I like is this was, like I said, this is Bond's best friend. And so there's so much, and that's why the final moment of they go back to the dialogue from the very beginning, for England. It's great. I think this movie is spectacular. I think this is a Bond movie that you can still show people. And the problem is, and we'll get into this next episode, I would love to say this is a Bond movie you could show people now and they'll still love, but I don't know, because I feel like the Daniel Craig movies have neutered people's brains to what James Bond is. We will get into that because I have I've talked about it a lot, but I'm really looking forward to next month because I'm not a fan of Daniel Craig, and to be honest, we're going to have to see what the next Bond does, but like, watching all these movies, the Connerys, the Daltons, I'm just like, I think Daniel Craig kind of fucked a lot of stuff up for general audiences when it comes to, because I don't know if someone who saw Casino Royale can go back to this movie and be like, oh, this is a little bit too silly. That Wade character is so dumb. And it's just like, I'm not trying to shit on Daniel Craig, especially
I was about to say, you can do that next episode.
Merely, but that's a preview for all you people. So if you want to hate
Yeah.
me now, you
Well,
can do that right now. Not have to wait until next episode. But let's move on to
yes.
the next episode. Um,
You're right, Ryan. I agree. Daniel Craig was great, and that's all I'm gonna say.
yeah, he was great in that episode of Young Indiana Jones Chronicles where he played a Nazi. He was very good in that, or a German. I'm sorry, they weren't the
Oh wow,
Nazis
that's a
yet.
good
Yeah,
good pull, honestly. But no, quickly, I'll just say I love
yeah,
GoldenEye. It is great. One of the best villains. The biggest knock against it is that the romance and the character of Natalia is
it's
fine.
fine.
It's kind of like very serviceable at the
Yeah,
very least.
it ain't no Honey Rider.
Oh god, yeah, no, it's not. It's not.
Oh, don't
It's
worry.
not.
Hey, look, when we get to the one after the next one we're going to talk about, I think you're going to be wishing Natalia was back.
Yeah, no, again, that's why I said she's not the best, but she's not the worst. So
Yeah.
please go on. And the next one, Matt, tell me, what is? Let me get I gotta find the picture. Where's the picture? I'm like, I can't tell. They're all like so
watch me
small.
later.
So I'm just kind of guessing right
That's what
now.
Scuba Pete says.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
This is me, Arnold. I'm James Bond. 007. I'm such a good
Here it is.
spy. Yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies.
Tomorrow Never Dies.
There it is. This movie is fun as hell. Again, guys, so we're not gonna go as in depth. We're gonna be more overview on these. So I think this movie is under 2 hours. I think it's like hour 59 per. It's right around there.
Good
It's
job.
so much
That is
fun. Like, it's super fun. It has a villain who this movie was 97.
Yeah,
was ahead of its time to kill shit now.
Listen, I will give it that. I think that Elliot Carver, I believe that's his name, Elliot Carver. Yeah. Okay,
that's the villain.
Elliot Carver. Also, Ryan says, "Why is Manning doing this show in his car?"
Because Ryan's a fancy critic who has to go to film festivals.
I'm at a film festival right now, and I'm breaking away for an hour to do an hour 30 to do our talk about our Bond. So yeah, I have another movie that I have to go see soon. So that's why I'm in my car. Very fancy. Oh wait.
Manning saw the movie Nomad and Garth, please don't. That's the next movie. Let's talk about a good movie with a good Bond girl.
Yeah. So Elliot Carver as a media mogul, as a media whatever you want to call him, is such a fun. Jonathan Pryce. I absolutely.
He's fantastic.
Like, he understood the assignment, is what I'll say. Jonathan Pryce understood the assignment about what he was doing. I think
everyone did. I think everyone knew. Let's make a fun look. We've reestablished James Bond. Let's have a little fun with this one. Michelle Yeoh, who plays the Bond girl. I put air quotes because she falls into the category of Bond girls like For Your Eyes Only and License to Kill, where it's like there shouldn't be a romance. Just let them be partners in this. Let's let them be partners in this.
Yes.
Scuba Pete is showing his love for Terry Hatchard, who, look, this woman, this is the same year that the final season of Lois and Clark, The New Adventures of Superman, came out. Be Still My Heart, Terry Hatcher, one of the best Lois Lanes, one of the most beautiful women even today. Fun story. Her and Pierce Brosnan hated each other when they were. Yeah, wait, Pierce Brosnan has talked about they did not get along at all. No. At all. They did not get along at all with making this movie. I didn't go into the bar. But yeah, they did for whatever reason. They were not pals of each other.
But did he get along with future Oscar nominee Michelle Yeoh?
Yes, I believe so. I did not read. Yeah. Also, Terry Hatcher was pregnant during the making of this movie, which is why you never really. That's why she's wearing a black dress, and you never really see her from the front. Always from behind, because she was pregnant.
Wow, I did not know that. Wow. Yep. Huh. Well, thank you for that.
The more you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't even have a lot to say about this one because I think this is a solid Bond movie. Is it top 5? No. But for a movie that you can throw on a nice, lazy Saturday afternoon, this is a good one. It has a fun villain who's having a good time. It has a lot of good action sequences throughout it. that motorcycle chase is one of my favorite sequences, and I love how they what's great is they add something. It's not just a motorcycle chase because they give the add element of they're handcuffed, and so they have to keep finding ways to be able to actually properly drive the motorcycle,
Yeah.
which is fun. It's a fun, just added element to it. Yeah, it's just a good one. It's just a good one. There's nothing more to say. It's not mind-bendingly great like GoldenEye, but it's
No.
also not a shit show. It's a
It's
solid Bond movie.
and this is where I think that, and I don't, again, I like this film. I want to say I
This is
like it.
where you feel like this is where the Brosnan series started to copy, not GoldenEye. Is that what
This
you're
is
gonna say?
where, yes, this is where I feel like, see, to me, like that little area with GoldenEye and, with what Dalton did, that little area to me is like, wow, this is like my favorite era of Bond. Like,
Yeah.
like my favorite, just like little few films, because I feel like that is the most, I don't
That
know.
trilogy of films.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. That 3 trilogy of films is probably some of my favorites, and I'm a big Craig fan, as you know. So me saying
Yes.
that,
Yes, 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 yes.
that's a, to me, I feel like after seeing that, that's like my favorite aspect. It's like a trilogy. This one
Yeah.
feels very much like it's not that same script that they gave originally for Dalton. You can kind of tell
No.
it's little
No.
they lean into the silliness a lot more in
They
this.
do. And that we'll see in the next two that this movie was successful. As Garth said, it was number 2 behind Titanic.
Oh, yeah. Didn't
So
know that.
yeah, it's a fun movie. Do I wish that the next two went more towards GoldenEye and not this one? Sure, but I mean, this movie also continues to show why Brosnan is my favorite, is because he gets so many great moments
Yeah.
of fun and levity, but dark shit too. That hotel room scene with the doctor, where he's like, "I'm just a man doing a job," and he's like, "So am I," and just shoots him. Like,
Yes.
that's great. That's again, and going back to, I feel like these are the lost Connery movies. Like, imagine Connery. You can imagine, I'm just a man doing a job. So am I. Like, and it's funny because I'm not sure if it was
Yeah.
this movie or the next one, but Pierce Brosnan, Sean Connery actually came to set and like met Pierce
Wow.
Brosnan, and Pierce was like hooked up on something, and he was like, "I hope they're paying you well for this shit," which is just great. But yeah, so now we can move on to this next thing that comes out.
Quickly add by and to wrap up with this one is
Yeah.
that I am very much impressed with just how, again, I really enjoy the silliness of Elliot Carver. I'm also a big Jonathan Pryce fan. I think he's a very underrated actor, personally. And just the way that, and Michelle Yeoh is great. I love it when
Oh,
Bond
she's
teams
wonderful.
up with a foreign, with another, like, be it a um
Yeah.
um oh God, I'm just blanking on his name. It's our favorite. What's his name?
What are you talking about?
The American CIA agent, our favorite. Oh my God.
Oh, Felix Leiter.
Thank you, Felix. I kept
I
thinking like,
was
oh
like,
my God.
the
We had an
fuck are you
entire
talking?
episode
I thought you were
dedicated.
talking about Michelle Yeoh. I'm like, we
No,
have a favorite, like,
no, she's
what,
Chinese.
Asian actor?
She's with the Chinese in this one.
Yeah, she's essentially a Chinese Felix Leiter.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Chinese field agent.
yeah,
I'm a big fan when he teams up with foreign agents, because
yeah,
it always makes for some great banter, because there's always some like disconnect
yeah.
between him and the other agent,
And I
and they
like the
play off
fact
each
that,
other great. And
yeah,
I honestly
he's still a
wish,
naval commander in this one. We see him in his
yes,
full uniform in this one.
and I sincerely wish that they didn't get together. Um, I
I
believe her name
agree. There's no, and you said that when we talked
Waylon.
about
Yeah,
License to Kill, to where you feel like that final scene where she's all like sad that James kissed the other girl. It's just like,
yeah,
did you have a romance? Did I miss all those scenes? Like, it seemed like you had a partnership.
yeah.
I agree. I feel like that final moment with them, to where
Cut it.
it's like, oh, let's just pretend like that we're here. Let's just make out. It's just like, where the fuck was this in this movie? Again,
No
I
idea.
like the stuff they were doing with Terry Hatcher, and the fact that like that was a relationship from
Yeah.
long ago, and all, like,
Okay.
that was great. And that's why I feel like she could have been the romantic Bond girl who gets killed.
I was about to
And then
say,
we have
but
Michelle Yeoh, who's just like you said, Felix.
yeah,
Which now
exactly.
I'm just like, whatever. Let's move
Yeah,
on to this thing that comes out next.
this
This thing that introduced me to James Bond, but I haven't watched it in a number of years, and I'm just like, oh god, what the?
oh god.
Here we go.
I mean, hold on. I was trying to figure out, make sure I've got it. I can't tell. All right, let's see. Where is the world not enough? This is it.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay. I'm really guessing over here because it's so small.
All
Oh
right.
god.
Here, look. I'll say there are some great things about this movie. Pierce Brosnan is still great. He's fantastic. The actress who was the princess in Braveheart. Not. Oh wait, no. Electra King, who the whole time I was just like Electra Nachios from
Yep.
from Daredevil.
Yep.
So she's great. And I'll say this, it sucks that the one character that Pierce Brosnan's Bond actually had good romantic chemistry with ends up being a villain. That sucks. But the villain, I guess we want to call him the main antagonist, is terrible. Like,
Yeah.
I get it. He can't feel pain, but he's nothing. But none of this is comparative to Christmas Jones.
One of the worst.
I hate this fucking character. Look, Denise Richards is great in Star Trek Troopers. She's great in her small stint on 2.5 Men. She can act and she can be funny. She can be this. Did she just forget to fucking act in this movie? There's a moment after that whole sequence in the tunnels where she's talking to James Bond and she's like, well, I need to get back before someone has my ass. And I literally shouted out, hey, Denise, you want to try acting on that one?
There is, this is what we call a perfect case of miscasting.
Like, she's fucking terrible, man. Like,
She's
she
really
looks great.
bad.
I'm not gonna lie, but like that line delivery, I need to get back before someone has my ass. And yeah, look, Scuba's been saying it the whole time. He said to me on Twitter, her name is just for that joke at the very end. That's it. It's her name is just the joke. It's so fun. And you know what sucks? There's a bunch of actresses. This is 99 who could have played nuclear physicist really well. Julianne Moore could have done it. She would have been great. She was just in Lost World a few years ago, so she's not above doing these types of action movies. Nicole Kidman was way more convincing as a doctor in Days of Thunder and Batman Forever than Denise Richards was. So fuck it, bring Nicole Kidman in here. Fucking, that's just two off the top of my head that I'm like, could have cast them. Their names probably would have been fine, but no, you went with Denise Richards.
And that's where I think again, let me just say that entire joke is like when I realized that's like, oh god, that's what you're doing. Oh my god, this is why you named her that. Like, it's not even a pun. Like, for instance, Garth, Waylon was another fun Bond girl name, Waylon on Enemies, which I'm not sure if that's the case, but if it is, it shows thought. This is the one where it's just like
Christmas only came once a year.
Yeah, and so she is definitely one of the worst Bond girls, I will have to say, because she's there for a joke, and that's really it.
She's there for a joke, and because they're like, well, the Bond girl that we actually wrote chemistry with Bond, we want to make her the villain, so...
Yep, and that's the the thing. It's like she comes in like, what, halfway through the movie?
Yeah, and then there's, again, going back to, at least with Wei Lin, they were kind of hanging out together, like, it's just, there's no, why the fuck, like, look, I'm not a really great looking dude, but I understand that, like, when two attractive people are in the same room, things can just happen. And look, 99, I was about to say 99 Pierce Brosnan. Fuck it, I saw Black Adam. Fucking Pierce Brosnan whenever, and Denise Richards whenever. I totally get it. Like, I totally get it. But, like, come the fuck on. Like, good things about this movie. Pierce Brosnan is still great. That moment in the casino when he wants to see Robbie Coltrane and the guy won't let him in, and he takes the tie, stabs it down, and starts choking him. Fantastic. The final moment with his love interest who turns evil when he kills her, like, you wouldn't shoot me. And he does, like, fantastic. Like, he's so good and shows a lot of great stuff.
Which I will add, Robbie Coltrane the bringing Robbie
Yeah.
Coltrane was an excellent choice back because I feel
Yeah.
it truly believe like he was one of my favorite parts of GoldenEye. Like,
Yeah, he was fantastic.
I really enjoyed it, and what he brought. He is another one of those character actors that just worked so well, honestly. So yeah, and it's like I love the fact that they actually brought him into the fold of the actual final battle in and of itself. Especially with like,
Yeah.
he's, when he frees Bond at the very end.
Yeah, great final moment
Great
for
moment.
him that he saves Bond's life with
Yep.
his last one.
Yep.
Yeah, this movie, and again, that villain just fucking sucks. He's
Yeah.
terrible. It is, I will say, interesting things about it. It is interesting how long the opening sequence is. Like, we see M. I don't think
You're
I'm trying
right.
to think of an opening sequence where we've seen M before, and I can't off the top of my head think of one before this. Because it's a while before we get to the title sequence.
I need to double check when I rewatch the Craig films if that's happened, but I don't
No,
remember
but I'm saying
before.
it might have
Oh, for
happened in
sure.
Craig's, but I'm
Yeah.
saying before this, Garth does bring up, yeah, this is the introduction of John Cleese's R, which Pierce Brosnan has talked about. He's really happy in the next movie that they made him Q because he said trying to maintain an English accent and not let his Irish through and having to say R was very difficult for him. And yeah, we'd be remiss to say that
Last film of,
I want to make sure
Desmond
that
Llewellyn.
I get his name correct. It'll be
Desmond
easy to find because
Llewellyn.
he is the and there's no way anyone's gonna beat this man for me on Letterboxd this year's my most watched actor.
Desmond Llewellyn, I believe.
Desmond Llewellyn, who played Q. He's fantastic and he's so great in this movie.
Consistently great.
I love how he's like fucking around with R. Like
Yeah.
when he with the jacket where he's just like, oh, for God's sakes, just pull the tag. Which by the way, talking about that thing, James Bond gets to do his favorite thing, which is ski in this movie again. Um, but yeah, Q. I don't know if they knew it was gonna happen, but like
No,
that
they didn't
final
because
moment with him and Bond is just like
yeah,
it's beautiful. It's really for a guy who you have to think the only movie he wasn't in was Doctor No.
yeah.
Like this guy survived through every James Bond, every M that changed, every money penny
Well,
that changed. He was Q. Like
and
no one replaced him.
agreed. And
He's
that
fantastic.
yeah, he died in I think right before the movie's premiere, he died in a car crash. So it's like it wasn't even like old age, wasn't sickness. He would have kept going. At least from what I was reading, they didn't like express like, oh, he's retiring from the role. They never said that yet.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's what they ultimately were planning on, but
I don't know. Yeah,
that comment may have meant like he was probably realizing, hey, you know what? I'm kind of wanted to wind down. So
yeah. Maybe it's time
death
to
was
walk away
tragic.
from this, but yeah, it's great. But the movie itself, for the intro to a series that I love, this movie kind of sucks.
Yeah, it kind of does, but
It kind of does.
it's
Now, let's
yeah,
move on
yeah,
because before someone gets my ass,
it's
I'm not
okay.
gonna forget that shit. I don't know what line was. You know what? I can't even. I think the only worst line delivery in a movie is Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Then you must die.
Then
That's
you
it.
must die.
Fuck it.
Oh,
Let's move
so
on to a movie
let me tell
that
you,
I'll
that
have good
movie
things to say about.
is get the right one.
Moving the wrong way. But
Die Another Day.
hey,
So, Die Another Day is the moment where I kept thinking, this is the moment when I realized, oh my God, how many more times are they going to make a joke every 5 seconds? The last act is literally every other line is just a joke. A joke, a joke, a joke. This is one of my least favorite since I think like one of the racist one of the racist more films literally. So yeah, please,
so
Matt, what's your thoughts?
here's the thing. I binged all three of these movies
Wait,
yesterday.
this movie is also racist. I mean, come on, it's borderline like literally, correct
There's
me if I'm.
story reasons for why I think you're saying
I
is
I
racist happens.
yes, I
It's
understand
not
for story reasons, but
okay. Is it as bad as Sean Connery dressing up as an Asian person and you
no,
only live twice?
absolutely not.
No.
But it's still
Um.
like, ugh.
All right. Yeah. Well, James Bond is not a series that is new to cultural appropriation.
No, no, yes,
So,
culturally appropriate,
okay, look. So
inappropriate.
I watched GoldenEye earlier the week, but then just because of things, I had to binge all three of his remaining films yesterday. And as you heard, I fucking hated watching The World Is Not Enough. So you know what?
Bad.
This stupid, dumb, fun, pun-filled movie, yeah, I had a damn good time with it. As compared to the last one, I had a damn good time with this one. And you know what? Pierce Brosnan was still fantastic throughout it. Like he was great, and Judi Dench was still great as M. And I'm sorry, like I know it's not one of the best, but it's to me. I know a lot of people put this as one of the worst, but maybe if I watched it just on its own, I'd have different feelings. But having watched to me one of the worst,
Right.
not one of the worst, one of the weaker ones. I don't think it's anywhere as bad as Roger Moore's first two that we talked about when we talked about him. Where whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Octopussy for me, to where it's like it's stupid and dumb, but you know what?
Yeah.
I've seen worse. Yeah, there are good things about this. One, like I said, Pierce Brosnan is still fantastic in this movie. When everyone likes to talk about how badass Daniel Craig's Bond is because he got hit in the balls, freaking Pierce Brosnan survived 14 months in North Korean prison. Okay, if you want to talk about how tough Daniel Craig is, come on, don't even start with me. Pierce Brosnan is the toughest Bond ever. All right,
yeah, you're right. North Korea prison's hard to actually
survive.
Yeah, I get
Yeah.
that.
And you know
Yeah,
what? I'm pretty certain they did some ball torture to him as well. So yeah, suck it, Craig. I'm just starting the Emperor Palpatine. I'm just prepping for next month's episode to where I can let out all this stuff. The sword fight sequence is super fun. It's choreographed really well. There's a nice bit of reality to it, to where you actually feel like Pierce Brosnan and the actor, I can't remember that he's fighting, are actually like hitting each other. It's a fun sequence. Rosamund Pike isn't terrible.
No,
She's
she
I
understood
like
the
her,
assignment.
and again, I kind of wish she hadn't been a villain. Because I thought her and Bond, like, again, that whole sequence when she comes in to save Bond and she's like, I know exactly what you are, death for breakfast and all this. Look, Halle Berry is great in Monsters Ball.
I was about to say, where are you going with this?
She looks great in this movie.
Which is unfortunate, because I was saying Rosamund Pike, I think, really understood the assignment and went for that kind of almost very tongue-in-cheek, over the top, because this movie is over the top out of all the Bond films.
Like I said, yeah, this is like a later. This is funny enough because they deal with the same subject matter. This is Pierce Brosnan's Diamonds Are Forever. It's silly, it's fun, and as you remember from that episode, I quite enjoyed that movie. So yeah, it has some sequences. Like I said, the sword fight I think is really cool. I think I don't know, man. It's a fun movie. I think Rosamund Pike is good. I think the Your Mama joke kind of sucks. And is just it's 2002. Of course they would make a Your Mama joke. But again, I think Brosnan is still so damn good in this movie. And I think he elevates this stuff, and yes, I can totally understand why they're like, maybe it's time to walk away from these movies for right now and go a little bit more serious. But like I said, I've seen a lot worse.
I also think it's not even I think the writing in this one, which I think is very much, they really go full ham in this one in comparison to some of the others. I also think this is one of the first ones where I think like they doubled down on the CGI, and it was not, we weren't there yet. I feel like with a lot of the CGI, and it really sticks out.
This is 2002. This is the same year as Attack of the Clones, Two
Oh,
Towers,
yeah.
Spider-Man, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So this is a very
No,
like
it's there then. You're
computer
right.
generated effects blockbuster time. There's a lot. I get it. Yeah, look, the surfing sequence with the laser looks really, really bad. That's a really dumb moment. But again, I think it's good. I think it's like, again,
I'm happy you think so.
because I binged them all in one day, or not all of them, that it's
Oh, wow.
like, because I think, you know what's funny? I think my feelings on Die Another Day are similar to what I said with A View to a Kill when we talked about Roger Moore. I don't think anyone said we're making a great Bond film here. I think everyone was like, this is fun
Fair.
to do. Whereas I think The World's Not Enough. People thought they were, I think they were like, oh, we'll have this great romance, and then she's gonna be a twist, and we'll have this villain who he can't feel anything, blah blah blah. And it's like, to me, I'm like, again, I go back to that conversation we had in the Moore episode. What is worse, the dumb movie that knows it's dumb, or the dumb movie that thinks it's serious? I mean, I'll take the dumb movie that knows it's dumb.
You make a compelling point, actually, now that you say that out loud. I guess when I just first saw this is when it really dawned on me, like, how did we get from this to how did we get from GoldenEye to this right here? That's my biggest thing, because we had such like they like cracked the formula in my mind in GoldenEye on how to
I
do a really
agree.
good Bond film.
I don't know. That's one of those questions that we're never gonna get an answer to. Sadly.
I also am looking at like the Warren Lee or excuse me Lee Tamahori, I believe. I'm looking at who directed this. What is their filmography? The Edge. They did Triple X, State of the Union.
Right off the top there, that should tell you Triple
Yeah,
X.
but that was a few years later. So, and they also did
Oh, yeah,
Along
that's
Came a
right.
Spider.
Don't know. Let's talk about that sequence with R, or the new Q, where there's references to the past stuff like the jetpack and everything. That was fun. Especially, and again, you don't know, but especially for this being, to me, the closing chapter on the classic Bonds. Because
Right.
when we get to Daniel Craig, he begins the modern Bond era. To where he's in his own he's in his own universe. I don't think he is connected to the Connery films or the Dalton movies or anything like that. So I think it's nice that they have just little references to previous films in this one, even though they had no way of knowing. Yeah, I don't really have much more to say on this one. It's dumb fun. We could just get to our rankings if you want to.
Yeah, and I will say we're making great. Hey, we've made great time. Seriously.
Yeah. I will also say I half apologize for the digs I've taken at Daniel Craig. Half because it is rooted in truth, but it's also because I've had to endure since 2006. Every time you want to compare who's the better Bond, it's always just a picture of Pierce Brosnan on the surfboard. And it's just like, nah, Pierce is really great. And I know Daniel Craig is a good actor, and I will give him credit for good stuff he does. But I also just think that I think Pierce gets overlooked. I think he gets overlooked in how truly good of a Bond he is. So that's why I make the digs. They're all in kindness. And look, Daniel Craig would kick my ass in a fight. But
probably.
I think Pierce Brosnan could come in. I feel like Pierce Brosnan is like secretly like a badass at his age now.
I don't think
like,
it's secretly. I feel like it's just is.
I'm just saying, like, I feel like if Daniel Craig was in a bar with Pierce Brosnan and he started talking shit, I feel like Pierce Brosnan would, pull out some of that like Aikido, Seagal shit and just knock his ass down. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. I feel like he'd be like Knives Out, snick, snick.
I feel like out of the surviving Bonds,
who would win in a fight?
Oh, it feels like Dalton. I feel like Dalton.
Oh well, Dalton would just shoot both of them.
It'd be like
Have you seen Timothy Dalton? Timothy Dalton doesn't give a shit. Can I call Matt a Marvel shill since he keeps picking on DC?
Daniel Craig.
Oh.
Get it? DC.
I didn't get that joke because I'm like, who are you talking? I have a Batman v Superman poster in my. Who the
Let's
fuck?
go with the joke.
I'm not shit. It's for the joke.
Get it?
Ha ha
Anyway.
ha! I see it now. Yeah. I don't know how we got to that, but yeah, Timothy
Uh-huh.
Dalton would probably win because, like I said, he
Probably.
just shoot both of them.
That'll be our final rank. Who would win? What we're ranking
Who
for?
would win in a fight out there surviving? But and George Lazenby, that he goes out first.
No, he's like, well, I give up.
I give up, guys.
Or an Australian
Or
accent.
really
I give up.
sadly, the three of them were just like, oh, you played Bond in the movie, George.
Oh,
That's nice.
that's nice.
Oh, look, George
How
thinks he
cute.
played James Bond. They're
Anyway,
really
all right.
mean. Let's get to the rankings so that you
Yes.
can move on. Yeah, like I said, we'll talk about Daniel Craig next time. But
Next
now
time
we
on.
rank Pierce Brosnan. So what do you have at number 4?
All right. So I love your spirited defense, and you are encouraging me to give it a fair watch again with the eyes of, in comparison to The World's Not Enough. But Die Another Day is still my number 4 still, mainly because it really just I think fails. Is it dumb fun? Perhaps, but it also fails a lot at the end of the day for me as a film. To where it's like it's aware of its stupidity, but to the point to where it's too stupid for its own good. And yeah, there's just not enough for me to actually like jump onto for me to love it as much as I should.
Yeah, number 4 for me is The World Is Not Enough. I think it has a lot of great aspects. Like I said, I think it has she's not Bond girl, the female character that Pierce Brosnan has the best romantic chemistry with. It has some cool sequences like the boat chase and everything, but it the whole sequence of the casino is great, but it's ultimately just fucking Denise Richards is so bad. The villain is so bad that it can't
Yeah.
save it. So that's why it's number 4 for me. What do you got number 3?
For my 3, my 3 is Tomorrow Never Dies. I think it's really just us switching and our lovability for each film.
Yeah.
I just can't get on board with it as much. I get on board with this one more is because I think yes, Denise Richards' Christmas is really bad. And Robert Carlyle isn't exactly, the greatest villain in the world. But
Yeah.
I really do enjoy I enjoy Elektra a lot, as I think
she's
as a
great.
villain. And I also really enjoy the inclination of Robbie Coltrane as Zukovsky. That's what I think really adds a lot to Brosnan's film.
So yeah, for me at number 3, I have Die Another Day because I think Pierce is still fantastic throughout this movie. I think stuff like Rosamund Pike is really good in the movie. There are sequences like the sword fight sequence that I really, really enjoy, and it's stupid, dumb fun. Who doesn't want to see James Bond pretending to be a bird watcher? Like that's a fun sequence.
That is fun.
Yes, and I think we have the same 2 and 1. Number 2 is Tomorrow Never Dies.
Yes.
Like we
Number
said,
2 is
it
GoldenEye.
is.
What are you talking about? No, I'm kidding. It's Tomorrow Never Dies.
It's fun. It has some serious moments to it. It has some great sequences. It has a fun villain. And that's kind of it's a good Bond movie. It's a solid entry, but I do agree. You can actually argue that because this movie is so successful at being kind of like good fun, that they went, these are the Bond movies we should not that last one, this one. I wonder if, and I'm sure Garth, because he's just knows all this shit in our comments right now. I wonder if Tomorrow Never Dies made more than GoldenEye, and that's why they went more on like a let's do the Tomorrow Never Dies thing. Let's be more like that.
Good point, actually.
I wonder.
Yeah, but I personally really enjoy Tomorrow Never Dies. It's not perfect by any means necessary, but I think there's enough pieces in there total.
But there's very few Bond movies that are perfect. Let's be honest.
Someone's car is going off over here in the parking lot. Oh, there we go.
No.
Oh no.
But no.
Oh dear. Oh my. I think that Carver is a really compelling villain, personally.
Yeah.
More so now than I think even at the time.
This movie is so like, it's so funny how it's just like, God, man, the villain controlling the media, manipulating shit. Like, gosh, that's a little.
On the
it's closer
nose
to home
nowadays,
now.
right?
Wrong. Just that wasn't a reference to anything or anyone who may or may not be politically connected.
May or may not. Anyway.
Now Garth is saying GoldenEye made more money than
Oh wow.
Tomorrow Never. I don't know. Whatever.
It made a little more money than Tomorrow Never Dies. Wait.
I was born the year that movie came out, so I don't know what was happening in '97. I have no clue.
So our number one is
it's GoldenEye.
GoldenEye.
Like it.
I mean,
is.
I don't see how it couldn't be GoldenEye. I mean, well, respect if it's not. I'd love
to. Oh yeah. Like if
it's not your
Die
favorite
Another Day, we've always said, love what you love.
Love what you love.
But yeah, if you're just looking at it, even if you take out any of your nostalgia for the N64 game, or if it's a movie, your first Bond movie you saw in theaters, all that, if you strip all that away and you just look at the basics, it's still a freaking great movie and a great Bond. Like, I think if you're doing a top 10 Bond movies, personally, I think it's got to be top 5.
Yeah.
I think for the introduction of Pierce Brosnan, he comes out swinging so well and is so good in that movie. I think it has a decent Bond girl, and they do try to build a romance. Unlike, like I said, Michelle Yeoh, there's really, they don't try to build, it has the best villain. Again, arguably one of the top 5 Bond movies, even if he's not your number one, because one, he's played by a great actor, is just having a ton of fun. 2, he's personally connected to Bond, which is awesome. And I think the first time we really ever saw that in these movies, and he actually does shit, which we talked about throughout this. It's cool that he actually fights Bond and he's not just sitting in a chair like, yes, Bond, you will die.
And those are my favorite type of Bond villains. Not always, but like I love that class of villain that can go toe to toe with Bond himself and not get a henchman to do it.
Yeah. And also it's the introduction of Judi Dench's M, which we didn't speak about throughout the last 3, but that's because she's just so consistently good. Like she is, and we said it when we were talking about GoldenEye, she's the first person to make M a character and not just exposition person. Moneypenny, the new money. Again, I love that scene between them. I really love GoldenEye. I said it, it's one of the best, one of my favorites, if not my all-time favorite. But we'll have to see that next episode if that.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add, I think GoldenEye succeeds in many ways by bringing both emotion and bringing it's the 2 different things that I think you need to have together to make a good Bond film. I'm with a myriad of other things.
Yeah.
But, the good action and a compelling story, and GoldenEye has both in spades, and it has just enough silliness enough to, I think, really succeed and differentiate itself by not being a Die Another Day.
It's the start of a short run, however, although long, I guess, compared to. Yeah, he's probably. Well, no, I guess Craig probably has the. Fuck it. I'm not going to sit here and try to think about it. Okay, it begins the reign of a great Bond, and a Bond who, look, when we talked about Roger Moore and his later films, we were saying, oh, this is when Roger started sleepwalking through the role. Pierce never sleepwalks. Even when you get to Die Another Day, he's not. He still is charming and funny and badass and has a dark tinge to him. Not as dark as Dalton. Like I said, I think Pierce Brosnan is the spiritual successor to Sean Connery. Like, I think if you're looking at the performances, he is the updated Connery. And I think that's great. And I think, look, Connery's the guy who really established all this shit. So if you're going to try and base your performance off of another actor, it's a perfect actor to base it off of.
Agreed.
So this was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I know, I know these episodes have ranged from like we go really deep into every movie, to we skim over
I-
some of the movies. But you know what?
If yeah,
Whatever. Oh,
I-
look, if you're looking for a recap of these movies, you're not going to find it.
no, it's
I and look, like I said, I need to restate because I know people, and I know that now that we have 1K, I feel like the algorithm might put us in people. I don't know. We
with
still got to get on the Roger Moore episode. Wants us to dig deeper. I don't know if we dug deeper for you, random commenter, or
no.
not.
It's a lot of films that he has, and
A
digging
lot
deep,
of
especially in more.
look, a
So
lot of Daniel Craig jokes are more so they're inside jokes if you've been following Take Three and My Connection. And like I said, because I think Pierce now, I feel like now, after, because the Craig movies introduced so many people to James Bond, and that has become their this is
yes,
what James Bond is. And so because I feel like Pierce has always been that, oh, look at how silly James Bond is, and people overlook scenes like in the casino in The World Is Not Enough and in Tomorrow Never Dies with the hotel room. They overlook those things and they're very selective when they talk about Pierce. And I think that's unfair to a guy who I think is my, well, it's not, I think I know he is my favorite actor to portray Bond.
and I will also add by saying I do not think that he is. I think that he is a good Bond. He's a great actor. And I don't think. I think Moore is infinitely more silly because Moore did not play it straight a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He played it straight, but he played it a lot more goofy. He really leaned into the goofiness.
Yeah.
Brosnan leans into the quips a lot of the time,
Yeah.
but it's not. He doesn't. The movies are sillier than he is. I think.
Exactly. I think he was always able to find sort of a, even when saying stupid shit like I thought Christmas always came once a year, he somehow found a way to make it kind of charismatic and dignified. So yeah. So I will, to prep everybody for next month, I will be nice. Do not think
Thank
you're
you.
tuning in to
Thank
be
you.
going, this is why Daniel Craig is the worst, because he's not the worst. Um
Well, he's glad to
he's
know that.
not. And there are things I like about his movies that we will talk about, and I will be a lot nicer. Um, maybe. I don't know. We'll
We'll
see how
see.
I'm feeling that day. Maybe I
We'll see.
won't. I don't know. I'm also someone who, when commenters and live chats try to, like start shit with me, I'm totally fine with slapping back, and I don't care about slap back against an actor who's never gonna see this.
Listen, I usually just ignore the haters. I just let the haters speak in their echo chamber.
Whatever. Yeah.
One of us has to yin and yang here.
Yin and yang. So, that is going to wrap up our thoughts on the Pierce Brosnan era of James Bond. So, Manning, where can the good people find you?
You can find me currently here at FilmFest 919 in Chapel Hill, where I'm currently going to head into my next film. That's in about 50 minutes. I'm gonna grab a quick bite to eat, so you can find me there. Oh, online though, you can find me at Cine at Twitter at Cine_man. That's CINE_MANN, as well as trying to find me on WFMY News 2. You can go to our website and you can go to our YouTube page and search for my reviews for News 2 reviews. So you can find that right there.
Garth is right. If I am really negative, people are probably going to share it and be like, can you believe this kid? I bring him on. As Han
Oh,
Solo once said, I prefer a straight on fight to all this sneaking around. I am, and I've had conversations.
we will
No,
know.
there will be no full hate because I'm just saying I'm really excited for the next episode because I'm finally gonna have a platform to talk about these movies
Yep.
and an era that I'm not super big on. So yeah, if people want to give me shit, fine. I really could care less. And if you're interested in giving me shit because I don't like Daniel Craig, I'm just gonna, before you comment and downvote and try to burn me at the stake. Remember, you're on the internet. You literally have access to any and everything your mind can think of. There's a video or something that exists of it. So maybe try to explore the internet more before you give a shit about my thoughts on a series of films that I had no connection to, and neither did you, unless of course you're one of the filmmakers, in which case come on our show and give me shit. I'm fine with that. I'll take a whipping if it means
Well,
views.
I'm also gonna. Don't worry. I'm over here to counterbalance you over there because I do like Craig. Spoiler alert. I like the Craig Bond films, even if, because as we've said before, the
Yeah.
Bond films are all indicative of the era that they are in, and
Yeah,
Craig is
we'll
very
get into
indicative of
that.
his era.
I,
That's all I'm gonna say.
yeah, yeah. Well, there's a lot to talk about, and that will be next month. Before I do that final plug, you can find me
Yes.
at Kearns_Matthew on Twitter. You can send your hate mail there. Jokes on you. I don't accept message requests from people I don't know. So suck it. You can also find me on Matt Movies 611, where I do a ton of videos, and right here as the host of Second Look. Coming sometime in November is going to be a new episode on Willow because I'm trying to play the algorithm because of that series. You can also find me as the co-host of Simple Tricks and Nonsense with Abe Flores. New episodes are coming. I have no clue when. And I'm also the host of the Fandom Podcast, which is on hiatus right now. We'll come back in the new year, hopefully bigger and better. And you can find me pretty soon. We don't have a definitive date yet, but we will be doing our final part
Yes.
of our James Bond retrospective, part 6 of 6. You can keep up to date when we're doing that by subscribing to Take 3 if you haven't done that already. You can follow us on Twitter at Take 3 Video or join our Facebook group. It's a lot of fun. Malcolm is doing a poll series right now about movies that have been featured the most on Rankum. So if you want to get in fights over movies, that's a perfect place to do it and people do it. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. We just hit the 90-minute mark, so we
Perfect.
somehow made it 90 minutes, even though we only went in depth on one movie.
Oh,
No, Garth, I'm not saying that. I refuse to say that phrase. I'm not doing it. I refuse.
it's
You
okay. It's
can't
up there
make
for everyone
me.
to see.
All right. Yeah. So I have nothing else to say except
Well, it's are
Denise
you doing
Richards
this?
is
Well, Matt, are
fucking
you doing this
terrible
for? Or are you doing this
in
for
that
England?
movie.
Oh, what was that?
I said Denise Richards is fucking terrible, and the world is
She
not
is.
enough.
But Matt, are you doing this for England?
No, for myself.